Have you ever stumbled upon a question that just stops you in your tracks? Rama asks one like that, and it's where we're kicking things off today. Whose is this ashrama with ancient trees? Why does such a beautiful abode stand deserted? Makes you lean in, right?
It really does. A perfect setup for this ancient story we're going to explore.
Right.
We're getting into an excerpt from the Ramayana audiobook series, Chapter 8, which focuses on Ahalya. Think of it as us sort of uncovering the layers together.
Right. Our mission today is really to unpack it all, not just, tell the story, but look at the themes, temptation, consequences, redemption.
And also some important context, like around who these figures are. We're hoping for those aha moments, connecting this old tale to, well, us.
Okay, so let's paint the picture. Rama and Viswamitra, they're heading to Mithila. And Rama spots this ashrama. What hits him is the contrast, yeah. Beautiful, ancient trees, but totally silent, empty.
Exactly. That question, why? Why is it deserted? And Viswamitra starts explaining. It's under a curse.
Ah, okay, so who lived there before?
That's where Sage Gautama and his wife Ahalya come in. They live there, meditating. A place of peace and serenity.
Sounds idyllic, until
Indra arrives. He's the Lord of the Celestials, and the text says he has this unholy desire for Ahalya because of her beauty.
Right, so temptation enters the picture. And how does he approach her? Does he just walk in?
Well, no. That's key. He uses deception. He disguises himself as Gautama, her husband.
Wow, okay. So he tricks her.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The text is quite specific. It says she wasn't deceived. She actually recognized him.
Wait, really? So she knew it wasn't Gautama?
Yes. The narrative says she yielded because of vanity, because she was proud that the king of the gods desired her. She lost her judgment, it says.
So it wasn't ignorance, it was ego. Pride clouded her thinking, even though she knew the truth. That's quite a statement about human nature, isn't it?
It really is. It shows how even people on a spiritual path can stumble, And right after, she realizes the mistake, the gravity of it. She warns Indra, tells him to flee because her husband's power is immense.
So a moment of clarity after the fall, does Indra get away?
Almost. But just as he's trying to slip out, Gautama returns. The description is powerful, clad in wet garments and radiating spiritual luster. Pure, powerful.
And he knows instantly.
Instantly. Pretense was hopeless before that all-seeing wisdom. It says Indra just bows down, terrified, abject supplication.
Showing himself on Gautama's mercy, but Gautama's not feeling merciful, I take it.
Not at all. He's furious. And he curses Indra right then and there. A really specific, humiliating curse.
Which was?
He says, "Lustful beast, may your manhood fall away from you." And poof, Indra becomes a eunuch, returns to the other gods totally shamed.
Wow. Immediate harsh consequence. Talk about karma in action.
Exactly. And then Gautama turns to Ahalya.
What happens to her?
Her penance is severe too. She has to stay in that ashrama, but be invisible, unseen by anyone, living just on air, complete isolation.
Just alone and unseen in this beautiful, now empty place. That's heavy.
It is. But there's a twist. Gautama, even in his anger, gives a prophecy.
Oh, way out.
A path to redemption, eventually. He says that after a long, long time, Dasaratha's son Rama will come by. And when Rama enters the ashrama, the curse will be lifted. She'll be purified.
So there's hope tied to Rama's arrival way off in the future.
Right. And having said that, Gautama leaves. He heads to the Himalayas for his own austerities, leaving Ahalya to her penance in the deserted ashrama.
Which brings us full circle back to Rama and Viswamitra standing there centuries later.
Exactly. And Viswamitra knows the prophecy. He tells Rama, basically, let's go in. You're the one who can free her. It's deliberate.
So Rama enters and...
The moment he steps inside, the curse breaks. Ahalya appears.
How is she described? Is she changed?
The descriptions are beautiful, really poetic, like the moon emerging from clouds, or flame from smoke, or the sun's reflection in rippling water, it suggests. Purity revealed, radiance returning.
Like something hidden is finally shining again. How do Rama and Lakshmana react?
With deep respect, they touch her feet, acknowledging her long ordeal, and her spiritual strength, really.
And Ahalya.
She welcomes them with traditional hospitality. And then flowers rain down from heaven, a sign of divine approval, Her penance is complete, her purification accepted.
That's quite a powerful moment of redemption. Is that the end of the story?
Almost. Just as this happens, Sage Gautama returns too, right on cue.
How does he react seeing her again after all this time?
He accepts her back, lovingly. She's purified, transformed by her penance. So it's a full reunion, a restoration.
A complete resolution. Now, you mentioned this is one version.
Yes, the text itself notes there are slightly varying versions in other Puranas or popular tales, which is pretty common with these ancient stories, right? Different tellings might emphasize different things.
Absolutely. And then the text shifts focus a bit, doesn't it, to understanding figures like Devas and Rakshasas, which feels important for us reading this today.
Definitely. It clarifies that Rakshasas and Asuras were generally seen as, well, acting against Dharma, against righteousness. But it also says, it wasn't always black and white. Some virtuous individuals existed among them too.
It avoids simple stereotypes. And it specifically tackles some misinterpretations, right? Things people might assume today.
Yes, very directly. It pushes back hard against the idea that these terms, Rakshasa or Asura, refer to actual ancient Indian tribes or races. It says there's just no basis for that in the literature or history.
It even calls out the specific idea linking Rakshasas to the Dravidian race.
It does. It states very clearly there's no authority for that in Tamil literature or elsewhere, and that Tamil people are not descended from Asuras or Rakshasas. It seems really intent on setting the record straight, historically and culturally.
Why do you think that emphasis is there?
Probably to keep the focus on the story's moral and spiritual dimensions, rather than letting it get tangled up in later political or social theories that don't fit the original context, preserving the integrity of the narrative.
Makes sense. So how are the Devas described in contrast?
Generally, they uphold Dharma. They often fight the Rakshasas, but, and this is key, they weren't perfect either. They could also deviate from Dharma.
Like Indra in this very story.
Exactly. And crucially, they faced consequences too. The law of karma applied to everyone, Devas included.
The text uses that analogy, right? About stains on cloth.
Yeah, stains show up more clearly on white cloth than on black. The idea being, maybe because Devas were held to a higher standard, their failings seemed more significant, more visible.
Interesting point. It cautions against judging too harshly, maybe. Or judging inconsistently.
Right. It warns against condemning virtuous people for occasional slips, while maybe tolerating those who habitually do wrong. It calls for nuance.
And it also mentions that the Puranas do show gods facing tough moral choices, even sinning.
The point wasn't to just, trash these divine figures. It was to use their stories as warnings against adharma, against unrighteousness, moral lessons, even through the gods' struggles.
So when people today maybe try to say, oh, Ravana was actually good, or they criticize Rama's actions without context,
the text implicitly pushes back. It positions Valmiki's Ramayana as the original, the source, and suggests that the difficult, sometimes morally ambiguous events in the Ramayana aren't flaws in the story, but reflections of real-life moral trials we can learn from.
It makes the characters, even the divine ones, feel more relatable in their struggles, perhaps, not just abstract ideals.
I think so. It shows the struggle with Dharma is universal. And the takeaway is that we can learn from their choices, their consequences, within the context of the story.
Which leads us back perfectly to Ahalya's story itself. What's the core message we should take from her journey?
I think it's fundamentally about hope and transformation. That even after a serious mistake, a grave sin, redemption is possible. But it requires genuine repentance, accepting the consequences of that long, isolating penance.
And the focus shifts from judging her to looking at ourselves.
Exactly. The text encourages introspection. Instead of pointing fingers, look within your own heart. Examine your own vulnerabilities to things like vanity or pride. Strive for your own inner purity. It's a call for self-reflection, really.
And a reminder that staying on the right path requires effort.
Constant vigilance, yeah. The text implies that even the best, the most virtuous, need to be watchful to avoid falling into temptation. The journey isn't static.
So, wrapping up our deep dive on Ahalya, the big takeaways seem to be about temptation's power, the reality of consequences, but also the profound possibility of redemption through sincere penitence.
And that crucial turn towards looking inward, right? Reflecting on ourselves rather than just judging others in these ancient tales.
Definitely. Which leaves us with a thought, perhaps. How do these incredibly old stories, like Ahalya's, filled with complex characters and moral quandaries, still speak to us? How do they illuminate our own human nature, our own ethical struggles today?
Yeah, maybe thinking about Ahalya's path prompts us to consider our own ideas of Dharma, our own journeys towards personal purification, whatever that looks like for us now. It resonates far beyond just the story itself, doesn't it?
I hope you like this chapter. We need volunteers and sponsors to create content with even better quality and with more variety. If you wish to join this initiative as a volunteer or sponsor, please click the links given in description below. To help us reach more viewers, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Biography Central. Thank you for your time. It means a lot. Namaste.